You are watching Access LaPorte County Channel 97. Coming up next is the June 12th meeting for the Michigan City Board of Aviation Commissioners. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
City Commissioners meeting called to order. So here we're meeting at Michigan City Terminal Building. It is now 1 p.m. today. It's Thursday, June the 12th, 2025. The members of the board present, Jeff Bartlett, Kirk Hunter. It was Greg here.
Greg is not coming.
Okay, myself, and did you have a quorum? Others present, we have our airport manager, Jessica Ward. We have Nancy Formanauer. She's our Michigan City Council liaison to the board. We have Paula Schaefer. He's our engineer at BF&S.
We also have Wendy here. She is our Public Works Director.
Thank you.
And we have Tim Warner, our city engineer.
And then we also, did I mention Paul?
Yep.
Yeah,
Paul was it? And volunteer. All right.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Did everybody get a chance to look at the minutes from May 8th?
Yes, I did. I move that we accept them as written. I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right. Let's do financials.
All right, here we are. So in your packet, you have this fancy sheet. We are currently under our monthly projected budget in all of our budget lines except for building maintenance, supplies, and telephone. $2,665 came out of building maintenance supplies this last month. These items included a 55-gallon drum of Banish ground sterilizer, which is a VOC compliant water-based weed killer concentrate, which is 1.2% Bramacil. It's got long-lasting residual up to 12 months.
Wow.
We've been using it for years. It's amazing. We use it all the way on our fence line, all around the perimeter.
Kills everything, right?
Kills everything.
Dogs, cats.
Stop. The cost of the drum was $1,688.95, and one drum lasts us the whole year. We, let me see, we also purchased 5 yards of mulch for the landscaping, 5 yards of topsoil to fill the ruts around the runway from the construction project, as well as other ruts just from winter operations. And we purchased 21 perennial bushes and annual flowers for the landscaping around our building, which was bare before this year, everybody remembers. We planted all the bushes and flowers in-house, as well as laying all the new mulch. Now everything looks so pretty.
It does, looks very nice.
And the telephone budget line I discussed last month with the AWAS phone line, AT&T going up to almost $300 for that phone line. We have a solution, which I'm going to talk about later in my report. Fuel sales. That's the next page. This one. Overall, we sold 915 gallons of 100 low lead, 1,837 gallons of Jet A, and 159.8 gallons of UL 94 in May. These gallons are down about 50% from May of last year, but our runway was closed for half a month, so we were literally down 50% of the month. Our current fuel prices are $4.84 for self-service avgas, $4.99 for full-service avgas, which the price was lowered 15 cents with our last load of avgas that we just received, $3.99 for self and full-service Jet A, and $6.45 for self-service unleaded 94. Manager reports. Summer airport events. This weekend is the beach flying weekend for pilots and their families event. Then we also have Airport Day, which is going to be Sunday, July 13th. The public's going to be invited to that. We're going to have food trucks, touch a plane, other fun aviation-related activities for all ages. Look for a flyer to be coming out on that soon. And then our FOP Pancake Breakfast is going to be Sunday, August 10th. There's going to be lots of fun activities going on at the airport that day as well. The community is invited to that event. And the flyer for that event is going to be coming out soon as well. The FOP is throwing that one together. Farming property south of Highway 20 update. Last month, Woodruff and Sons let me know that they needed to add more property to the temporary easement because NDOT gave them a specific location they were allowed to access the property from that was different from where they were planning on accessing it. So I had to discuss that issue with the farmer because of course we have that property farmed. I sent him the exhibit that was given me that showed the acreage that was going to be affected. I discussed the issue with the farmer. He had already fertilized and planted the crop before their construction project started. So he's definitely going to have to be reimbursed for the acreage that's affected by that, which the water department knows, Woodruff and Son knows, Haas and Associate knows. They're all working on the project together. So the project scheduled to be completed June 26th. And then we will make sure at that time that the land affected is actually what's shown on the exhibit, and then a price will be negotiated for reimbursement for that.
But everybody's got a mutual agreement of.
Everybody is on board and understands, yeah?
Great.
AWAS phone service change. Our phone service for the AWAS has always been AT&T because they were the ones that had the landline down your road. They're removing their landline service now, so our bill went up to nearly $300 a month because they're trying to force us into something else and not using the landline anymore. They're trying to get rid of it. So I spoke with our AWAS certified tech about other options that we have available. He stated there are many sites in the Midwest that have switched over to a company called SourcePoint. They are approved for AWAS phone service. The cost is going to be $54.95 a month.
That's great.
Can you do that?
No.
We're
That's
just,
awful.
right? So we're just waiting on equipment to arrive, and then our IT director, Andy Metanic's gonna come out and do a self-install, which also saved us money. He'll be doing that with the AWAS tech, saving us installation cost. The cost for the equipment is $395. Activation fee is $100, so the first total invoice will be $549.95, and then after that, it's gonna be $54.95. What a deal. Seasonal laborers. We have our labor intern back this summer that worked here last summer. Hooray. He literally was an amazing hard worker. I couldn't be happier that he decided to come back. We also hired another seasonal employee that we're hopefully going to be able to offer a permanent part-time or full-time position at the end of the seasonal. So we're hoping for that. He's also great. He's doing wonderful. Hooray again. We are slowly getting caught up from the runway being down for the first half of May. If you remember, we could not mow for 2 weeks before the project, the whole project of, 4 weeks, or half a week, or half a month at least. So that was like over a month that we couldn't mow. So we've had to mow multiple times, track back over and over and everything. So we're finally getting about back to normal there, which is really nice. And that leads us to our annual airport inspection, our NDOT inspection. It's going to be in July now. Usually our inspection is in June. I'm really glad we pushed it back to July because it's nice that we'll be able to at least fill all the ruts that the construction workers, when they milled the runway, they were going back and forth across the runway and have like ruts every 150 feet or so down both sides of the runway. So we've been filling those in.
Was that paid, right? July?
No, it's just July. They come whenever they can. The details of the inspection are listed in Indiana Code 105.3-3 for anybody that cares or interested. And we'll be ready in July. I have no doubt that we're going to pass with flying colors. There you have it.
What's the ruts in the runway?
Yes.
Just asphalt creep as they drove equipment back and forth?
You're talking about the grass, right?
It's just the grass.
Right.
Yeah, so we're filling the ruts with dirt.
God, what?
Yeah.
They have out there, they're running the run.
No, so I got 5 yards of soil and we've just been filling in the ruts, and they didn't have any equipment to do that when they were out here, and they're from Ohio. So it was really hard for them to do that and take care of that, so we just.
Specialize with just doing that coating on the runway and not anything else.
Yeah, right. So we've been filling those in. So That's it for manager report.
Jessica, what was the date for the pancake breakfast?
Pancake breakfast is August 10th.
Thank you.
Did you tell us that was 7 to 12 before?
Yes, 7 to 12.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
And I think airport day will probably be like 10 to 4 or something.
Yeah.
So,
Oh.
but we don't have that on there yet. It'll be on the flyer, because I'm just waiting to see when we can get food trucks before I figure out what times, you know, that's an important part of it. So we wanna make sure that when people show up, we have food. So
Okay, sounds
we're gonna
good.
figure that out, and whenever that is, I will get it out as soon as absolutely possible. Our, event planners are helping with that for the city.
For the
So
city,
Eric's helping me with all that. So that's gonna be the best, because they are so good at all that, so.
Jessica, are you looking at crack sealing and parking and getting that striped again?
Yes, I will be getting it striped. I thought about even doing it in-house, but they know at the street department that we need it striped, so whenever they have their striping machine out, that would be really cool if that could happen.
They're getting it fixed from what I hear.
Oh, perfect.
Same. That's all.
Yes, awesome.
This is great.
Or else we could do it in-house if we had to, but we don't have a striping machine, so it'd be way easier if they did it
And
than us with our paintbrush, right? No.
That's right. Dragging it along.
Oh my gosh.
Paul, you ready? Come on.
Yes, sir.
Help me.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see you all. I've got a lot on the agenda. As Jessica pointed out, that we did complete the runway project, and for those new in the room to the project, this was, we have a larger project that we're hoping to have funds down the road. This project was intended to be a Band-Aid of sorts, to try to hold it together until the bigger project comes along. Certainly could have used a full mill and fill at a minimum, or even a reconstruct would have been ideal. But given that we might hopefully tear this up in the next 5 years, we did not want to invest a lot of money into it, knowing that that project could come up. So basically it's a surface treatment. They milled, filled cracks, and did a surface treatment. So, and hopefully that lasts the next 5 years, and we'll have a new surface beyond that. So we have several action items with regard to the current project. After we go through those, we have received a new funding outlet, 5-year funding outlet from NDOT that we'll review. So, so all of these items are in motions, are in conjunction with the runway project. The two are FAA pay requests, and that terminology is a little weird because we're asking for payment from the FAA, we're not paying anybody. But the combination of those two pay requests will cover the motion number 3, which is the progress estimate 1, which pays the actual contractor. You'll also notice that there's a change order in there too that we'll discuss. The reason it's divided into two, to the FAA, there are 2 FAA grants, AIP 29 and AIP 30. Those are truncated grant numbers, but AIP 29 and 30, and the reason there were 2 is because the airport used its normal FAA funding called non-primary entitlement funds. That's $150,000 a year. They've accumulated some, so a portion of the project was paid out of that pot of FAA grant. The other portion of the project was paid for out of what was formerly called the bipartisan infrastructure legislation. Now it's the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act is what that
I didn't
stands
know
for.
that changed that. That's so funny.
It actually, the original legislation was called IIJA, but for branding, they changed it to bill for a few years, and now it's back to the
Oh, I see.
IIJA.
That makes
So
sense.
it's the same program, different names. That's,
But we didn't get any more money, just those 5 years still.
well, actually so we did, because of your outstanding activity over the last year, they reevaluate, that's based off of your classification, asset classification, and because you had more instrument approaches, and you had more base aircraft, you went up from the 144 allocation to the 293.
Yeah, which was awesome. But that was just for the last year, right?
So that's just for last year, but that did go up, the IAJ, so that did improve. But this is from the previous 144 allocation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we didn't get any add-on years.
No.
Darn.
That program it was a set 5-year program, and it expires in 2026.
Got it.
Now you have 3 years to spend that 2026 money, so we're hoping to use the last and final year on that fuel program.
Yes.
So, but for today, the first item is a motion to approve AIP 29, partial pay application number 4, in the amount of $331,381.73. And you can see there on the agenda what the NDOT share and the FAA shares are on that. So this is.
When I looked at those, I couldn't quite understand what the lines were because it didn't describe enough, but why are they broken down to 29 and 30?
Because of the two different grants. So one is your normal non-primary entitlement, and then the other is the IJA, the IIJA grant.
Okay.
Yeah. So it just you'll notice that the total amount of the 331, 381, and the 264, 201 covers the contractor's pay application plus the professional services fees that were turned in.
Yeah, the 580,000.
Yeah.
Well, I move we approve AIP 29 partial pay request number 4 for $331,381.73 with the FAA paying $299,247, NDOT paying $16,569.24, and local $16,568.49.
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, and the second action item is a similar motion, just AIP 30, and this is the first pay request number 1, and the total amount of that is $264,201.17 with the FAA share and not local share as presented on the agenda.
All right, make a motion to approve AIP 30 partial pay request number 1 for $264,201.17 with the share of the FAA $237,781. NDOT $13,210.06 with local picking up $13,210.11.
I second the motion.
All right, okay.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
The third item is an actual payment to the contractor. This is progress estimate number 1, and this basically is the entire project up to retainage, but not including the change order that we will discuss after this. And so that's a motion to pay progress estimate number 1 in the amount of $580,377.84 to Amerisil, and that is for the runway project.
What is the percentage of the retainage?
10% of the total project.
I make a motion to approve payment for progress estimate number 1 in the amount of $580,377.84 to Amerisil.
I second the motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, and then the change order, so basically the design and all of the crack assessment was done 2 construction seasons prior to when we actually were able to build this because of when we got the design money and then we did the evaluation. Then we bid it. By the time they bid it, they couldn't come out that fall because there wasn't enough time from when we got the grant. We got the grant in September, and they were concerned. They didn't want to shut the runway down in October, hit foul weather, and then not be able to get it back open. So then it went through another winter. So basically, they went through 2 winters from the time we did the assessment when all the budget numbers were set. And Amerisil they were one of the people that helped do the mapping, because we had reached out. If you'll recall, we reached out, this was the first time this product was used in Indiana. It's been used in many airports, other places, but this was kind of going to be a showcase project for them. NDOT was very interested in it, so NDOT, Marisol, and our team all agreed on what we would advertise. That advertising amount ended up being less than probably what we needed because the cracks, one, we pulled crack sealing out of local budget, knowing that we were gonna do this project. Jessica was able to put that $75,000 we were gonna spend in crack sealing to a better use locally. So we didn't do any crack sealing over the last 2 years. Those cracks opened up wider. So basically, when we got out there, the contractor ran into 12,600 linear feet extra of crack sealing. But because they did help come up with that quantity initially, they agreed to half, so they split it half. So they wanted us to pay 6,800 linear feet of the additional crack sealing. They ate 1,600 linear feet. In addition to that, and this really doesn't, I mean, it's really not on you, but the cracks, they bid a per linear feet, and they estimated how much material was going to go in each linear foot. They ended up using about 4 times the amount of the material in each linear foot because the cracks were so deep. So we would have allowed them to use some asphalt millings or some other backer material to back that up. They didn't have the means and methods, so they went ahead and paid for all of that additional crack seal material as well on them. So, but out of, being good partners to them, and we are eligible for up to a 15% grant amendment to pay for these overages. We agreed to half the quantity of the additional linear footage. So 6,800 linear feet. So that came to $53,040. So they ended up paying $53,040 out of their pocket, plus the additional cost for the additional joint sealant material, which I don't have an exact dollar amount, but I'm guessing they're probably about $100,000 less in profit than what they wanted, but they were highly motivated to make it was the best project it could be because of the showcase status, so that's where we're at.
So I think they've been a really good partner, but that actually was 8%, the 53,000. 8% more than the original, but we could have gotten 15 for them.
Theoretically, from the FAA, you can ask for up to 15% of the grant amount. Yes. The FAA does not do contingency, so a lot of projects will put in a 10% contingency or 15% contingency. The FAA does not allow contingency. It is the price. And then if you run into unforeseens or some additional scope items that the FAA, the owner, and everybody agrees to, then you can tap into that 15% amendment request. So that's how they run that. You have up to, they of course don't want you to use any more than what you have to use.
Right.
And so this was an agreement with the contractor. They were hesitant to ask for anything, but we acknowledge they did spend a lot more work on it.
Yeah, they did.
And so we thought this was fair. We did run it by Joe, your Wyman, the FAA rep, and to make sure that they were agreeable to the additional 53,000. They are. It will take a little time to process the paperwork on it, but you will eventually get it. So
No, it's legit. I drove out there with Dave on the runway, so I talked to Jessica. And yeah, they were out there for a couple days just trying to backfill what was just dripping right through. So
You were out there, weren't you?
We've all been out there.
Pouring that stuff in, it's just disappearing.
Yeah, we were all out there.
Where's it going?
Nancy, we all went out.
So, yeah.
Tim came out.
yeah.
It looks good.
We get at least 5 years from this, right? Just 5 years.
That was the usable life maximum was 5 years out of this product.
So,
It's a Band-Aid for sure, T.Y.
okay, so the idea would be to start looking for ways to get a new runway basically after.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about that under, the item, 4 on the page. I just noticed the numbering was all jacked up. Yes.
All right, so.
4.0, that's the first one.
Order one? I'm sorry, can I get a motion for order one, please?
For which one?
Change order number 1.
For change.
I move that we approve the change order number 1 in the amount of $53,040.00 for additional crack sealing on runway 220.
Second.
I second.
Okay, all in favor? Motion carries.
Very good. Yeah, you won't actually pay that today. We will come back to the next month's meeting. You'll have your amendment requests for your grants, retainage release at that time, assuming you're satisfied on the punch list items, and then an additional pay application for the overage.
And I know they're working on getting the painting scheduled, the permanent painting.
Yes.
So Dave asked me next week what days would be good, and I gave him our answers. I talked to both the flight school and I talked to the skydiving, because I want to make sure they're not doing 45 touch and goes, or else it's going to take 2 days. So,
That's correct. They were shooting for next week.
yeah, so that's what we're looking at.
And Paul had asked what the difference between the temporary paint and the permanent paint. So there's a FAA, the spec for the permanent paint requires any surface treatment or any new asphalt to cure for 30 days prior to the permanent application. So we put, basically it's a half rate, so it's only put down at a half of the rate of the permanent, and it does not have any reflective media in it right now. The permanent would be basically twice as thick as that, and we'll have reflective media in there so the lights shine off reflective.
Nice.
Okay, you can see there the open grants 29 and 30 that we just drew from, and these are the current balances as of these most recent pay applications. That item 4, which actually should have been 1, and messed up in the numbering there, but the NDOT just sent out this new CIP planning. It's literally 2 weeks old. They had a meeting with FAA every year, and this was the result. Now, keep in mind, this is not a commitment to fund today. This is basically their equivalent of their CIP, but after you turn in your CIP. It is trimmed down. This is not exactly what we asked for. We asked for about $6 million more than this, but this is what they have in their planning stages. It's not like anybody, they have to do the best they can on their budgeting. They have a target allocation of how many dollars they're gonna get. They try to spread that as wide as they possibly can. So it's not uncommon for them to trim down estimates 10, 15, 20% from what we estimate. And the reason is when it goes to compete in the federal program for discretionary dollars, you have to be on a list. If you're not on the list, you can't compete. Once you're on the list, what the dollar amounts that they actually award are based on bid, not on our number, on our estimate. Right now, they're using our estimates. So that number changes around a lot. So they, from a strategy standpoint, trim 10 to 15, 20% out of our estimates often so that they can get more projects on the list competing. Sometimes it means a project gets cut if everything comes in over engineer's estimate, and they don't get quite as much discretionary money on the national level as they expect. But that's the game they play. So this is their numbers that they've negotiated with Chicago ADO. So you can see 26, and it's probably pretty small text, I apologize, but 2026 for the runway is 6.3 million, and that would fund a temporary bypass road and the utilities. So the storm sewer and the water and the sewer that we've worked with the city departments on, and then Now, all the fiber, electric, gas, they will move at their own expense, but we will provide them the dedicated utility corridor that we've already actually purchased and platted and all that jazz through the city. So we have that set aside, but they will be able to move into that location. Water and sewer have dedicated easements in our easement already platted. So this would be the first thing. And that this is really the big turning point. If we get this $6 million, now they're gonna dump as much money as fast as they can into it to try to finish it. But this is the part that will slip, because we've had this number on their plan before, and it's slipped based on, for example, Indianapolis runway came in a lot more because of COVID and all that jazz. It ended up being like a $160 million project. It was 120. That 40 million got, basically taken away from the smaller airports to make that larger project happen. So those things are still possible, but this is the plan as of today. So I am encouraged. Last year when we went to meet with them, they got really skittish on committing to even publishing this way this year. And the reason was, there was a lot of variables. We're starting to reduce variables on funding certainty. They weren't sure we were even going to have a discretionary grant program this year at all when we met with them last time. So there was not a lot of optimism there. And I will say there's still a lot to be concerned about, but it's a little more cautiously optimistic than it was this time last year anyway. We're seeing the FA grants being issued this year. We're seeing discretionary grants planned to be issued, and which is a great thing because that's what basically funds all capital in aviation. And for the newer faces in the room too, on their normal FAA money, entitlements and discretionary, this is not general fund money. So when it comes out of the FAA, it's coming out of a fund called the trust fund. It's an aviation trust fund, just like Federal Highway has a trust fund, aviation has a trust fund. It is funded through aviation user fees or taxes on your airplane tickets. You'll see the little leg taxes on there. We also, all the general aviation guys pay a tax on every gallon of fuel that's sold. It goes into the buckets as well. And so all that money gets, compiled in there. That program, based on current legislation, is about $4.1 billion a year that gets distributed out amongst all of the nationally recognized airports. So it's important that the users pay for the capital improvements, and they do. And so that's a good thing for the citizens of Michigan City to understand that most of the capital is 90% generally funded by FAA, which is funded by user fees, not from general tax ledger dollars. The nice thing about this, in 2025 and 2026, the match has been temporarily reduced from the locals. The feds are going at 95%, and so that reduces the state and local match to 2.5 and 2.5, just for 2025 and 2026.
Okay.
So you will save 2.5% on that particular year. Beyond 26, you can see they have some dollars per, well, the other 2026 project you'll see in there is total $615,000. That is the fuel farm. And so we're still working on that. And the status on that, they did not like the Indiana method of the public-private partnership, BOT, build, operate, transfer, primarily because they want cost to be a consideration on initial selection. And in BOT, the cost is a negotiated guaranteed maximum price after a qualification-based selection. So they want it to be CMAR, which stands for Construction Manager at Risk. Indiana doesn't have a pure CMAR. They have Construction Manager as Constructor, which sounds the same, but it is a little different. So we've written back saying we will use this code, or if the contractor wants to perform more than 20% of the self-performed 20% of work, in Indiana, Construction Manager as Constructor limits legally the maximum the contractor can self-perform is 20%. They have to broker out 80% of it. Well, on a field farm project, that's challenging because most of the developer contractors want to do more than 20% themselves. They want to perform stuff. And we want them to, because you don't want to pay markup on somebody just brokering the work. So we don't really want to use Construction Manager as Constructor or the contract constructor as Construction Manager Indiana code if the contractor plans to self-perform more than 20. So what we've written, a resubmission, is that we will use FAA CMAR. Talking to some legal folks, there isn't any reason why you can't put cost as a consideration in the public-private partnership DOT procurement. Just most don't in Indiana because it kind of defeats the purpose of having a collaborative design approach. So we are requesting that we follow the Indiana BOT's public-private partnership statute, but it will be FAA's CMAR by outline. So when we actually pick our contractor, developer, we will have qualifications and a price. The local community can determine a points value for both. If you want to make the qualifications 80% of the selection, say it's 100 points, you can put 80 points on qualifications and 20 points on the cost, and therefore not necessarily going with the low if they're not qualified.
Do you want to remind everybody why we decided to go through this approach anyways?
Yeah, so aviation fuel systems are very unique. They are not a gas station. We have a lot of gas station contractors in Indiana that will try to bid an aviation fuel system, but they don't ever end up going well because they don't know how to put the right filters on and all of the requirements that go into an aviation system. So there are a handful of aviation contractors in Indiana that are qualified to do the work. We need to make sure that we have one of those contractors. So it's not like there's only one in town. There are at least 3 that would bid on this project, but we want to be able to make sure that if we have the gas station contractor who bids on it, we can declare them not qualified based on their past experience. So in the qualifications, they'll have to have 5 years of experience in aviation fueling, have to provide references on previous installs, and then we will put points to that. If the contractor doesn't have any past experience and can't provide references for successful installs, then they won't win that section, even if they are the low bidder.
Because there's been lots of issues at airports using other contractors. And that's the problem.
What's so hard about
We
putting
don't
a
want to
filter
do
on?
It's the same reason why, the alternator for your car costs $60 from Napa, but when you buy it,
From the aircraft spruce.
yeah, like Cummings alternator for theirs is $270. It's all about liability, and the liability on an aviation system, the filtration and all the quality checks, the systems that when you fill it, there's filtration. Jessica has to sump these things and do fuel quality testing daily. And now all that is special apparatus that doesn't exist at a gas station. Because if your car stops because you got bad gas, you just pull it over to the side. Your airplane stops and, well,
You put over the air.
it's not as fun.
So right now, we're waiting on the state and the FAA to merge those 2 ideas together for the
We're just waiting on the
Their approval.
FAA. Yeah, and we basically conceded saying, yes, we'll follow your program exactly. So now we're just waiting for the call for the next grant round. I don't think they'll say no.
And then we can go ahead and submit the bid out.
Yeah, because I mean, they're like 18 months out, the systems and stuff, so we really wanna.
Okay.
It's the second we find out we can do it. We already have the local funds in place.
Yeah.
We already know that IDEM's gonna give us 50% back for the project.
Yep.
And so we already got that, reply. So I mean, we're all set to go as soon as Joe says, yes.
Yeah, and I haven't pushed them too hard just because we're trying to get them to put out the normal grants for this year.
Sure. Okay.
You know, it's just, they have a lot of work to do, otherwise, so. But Jessica is right. We are working on borrowed time on the system and it
Yes.
doesn't operate well. And the systems are 18 months out lead time. So the rest of that plan, we won't go down through details, but you can see 27 is where you really start seeing heavy earth moving, the road lowering of 20 because you've got your temporary bypass built in there, 20 gets lowered down, all that jazz. And then, so we are slightly short on this, but don't let, from a total finance based on what we submitted that we needed, but don't let that concern you too much because again, it's based off the actual bid pricing that gets submitted and that number goes up and down as long as you're on the list. You have to be on the list to play, and if you're not on the list, you can't play at all. So we are making some progress.
Gotta sign up for the draft.
Yeah, so, and because of that financial discussion, we basically discussed everything else, the fuel farm item, we already covered the runway, so that's everything.
Thanks, Paul. Nice.
Thanks, Paul.
Nice to see you again. I haven't seen you in about, what, 6 months?
Slight exaggeration.
6 weeks, 6 months.
Yeah, right.
It has been a while, I will concede that.
He misses you, so.
When was that? What was the mayor's call?
The mayor's gala was, April, yeah.
April, yeah, so that's the last time I did that, so.
So not even 2 months. If you didn't go to the mayor's gala, it's your own fault. Paul was there.
Okay, all right, so, that's it. Thank you again, Paul. Old
Thank you all for your
business?
time.
None,
None? Okay, new business?
none.
Claims, okay, we got that? Yep. Okay, you got it.
So, yeah.
There it is.
Oh, yeah, but
I'll make a motion to accept claims docket for $648,982.16.
I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried, thank you. Okay, correspondence,
None.
public comment?
I have 3 things real quick.
Paul?
Paul, I was just doing the math on 12,600 linear feet of additional cracks.
Yeah.
And divided by a 75-foot runway, that's 168 additional cracks, like the width of the runway. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. I just want to make sure that like that holds water. Like your guys agree that is a legit number.
Yeah, and we had, Dave.
Yes,
See?
the inspector, they had an inspector up here that, they had to work through all that together.
Runway and taxiway. Right.
Yeah, and it's real taxiway.
Yeah, and a lot of it, I think part of it, when we did the evaluation, Jessica has done a fantastic job maintaining the asset that the community has here. And the crack sealing material over some of those cracks, they might have been classified as a smaller crack, but then as the joint sealant wore off over the next 2 years and that crack opens up, it's not that the crack wasn't there, it just didn't look as severe as it was.
Because they use like drones to fly over and that's how they tell like
Yeah.
where all the cracks are and all that
That
stuff.
makes
So.
sense.
Yeah.
So does it, now that it's resurfaced, does that lower the risk of having that many more cracks 2 years from now?
Well, sure, I mean, the sealant and the joint sealant and the surface treatment is all, the whole strategy is keep water out. Water is the enemy to pavement. And so the more you keep the water out, the less freeze-thaw cycle you have. That's the theory. It's just slowing down. It doesn't eliminate the crack. There's still a crack there. It's, a Band-Aid.
The new ceiling should keep the water out.
It should help prevent the water out and reduce, retard the cracking from progressing as fast as it was.
Thank you. Number two, thanks again for fixing the AWAS antenna or transmitter.
Yeah.
I was flying yesterday, it's just so much better.
Oh, good, yeah.
Oh, fuck, can you catch
55 miles away.
Huh?
55 miles.
Wow!
Wow, yeah, it was.
Don't know how to act.
From 15 to 55.
Yeah, that's
50 was a
awesome.
stretch before. Like 10.
Wow.
Yeah, 55 miles, I picked it up.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's
And now you can see the runway 55
And I
miles.
see
good.
it,
Yeah,
right.
for real.
Yeah, it's great shape.
Oh, that's excellent.
All you luxuries. That's all you pilots think about is luxury.
You want to hear it and see it.
And the last thing is, and Jessica, we're gonna talk about this, but the Michigan City Aviators Club will be happy to help with pancake breakfast and airport day, whatever.
Boom.
So,
That's what I like to hear.
thanks.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
No. I move we adjourn.
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
All right.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Everybody?
We'll put the clock.